Welcome to Double Barrel Non-Duality. So this is something we do on this channel once a month, and we do Q&As with a group of people who are channel uh, sustaining members. And every month we have a different facilitator, a guest facilitator that answers questions along with me. Uh, this month, that is Frankie. You want to say hi, Frankie?
Hi, everyone.
Thanks for coming, man.
No, thanks. It's glad to be here.
Yeah, good to have you. All right. Let's see. We got hands up already. Let's go to Nomi.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello. Yes.
Hi. Hi, everybody. I'm not sure if I really have a question, but I would like to share something and maybe see if you can have something you can tell me. Um, hmm. So, I've been talking about this. My youngest son, who's 21 now, um, OD'd on hard drugs a couple of days ago, and he's in the hospital. He's in a psychiatric ward, a closed one. And I just want to share that this has been going on for like many, many years, his addiction and his psychosis. And since this process started, for me, this unbinding process about a year and a half ago, things just started shifting in how I don't know, I guess how life just goes. And I've been intensely working with Chris Gimmond on this. And it's been just so amazing how this started shifting, how I looked at my sons, at their, what's going on. And especially the last couple of weeks, I've been working with Josh. And he pointed something out that was really new to me, which was shame. And something just burst open. It was just like a life changer. And over the last couple of months, I've been really working with the feathers. And just like one sentence was always coming back was, I can't control the happiness of my children. And just want to share that over the last couple of days, even if this has been like devastating for me as a mom, seeing my son and not knowing what the outcome will be, it's been just like no fear. It's like things just go in a, like, I even don't know how to say it, but it's like the walking is doing the walking, the talking is doing the talking, the I'm preparing meals, I'm reaching out to people, but it's just like going in a flow that I've never experienced before. And there's a lot of pain, and I've had a lot of tears, and I did a lot of crying. But like the existential fear or the the not knowing what will happen to my son has gone. I even worried that I wasn't worried, or I'm not too worried. And it's just been amazing to see that the way I can be present with him. And even in his psychosis, he's saying a lot of things. He's being very angry towards me. And it's like before I could never not take that personal. And now it's like it's not personal. So I guess I just want to share this, that this process is, I mean, it's still going on, and I did a lot of shadow work and a lot of inquiry, and this has been like my life goal. This has saved my life, and it's going on. Yeah, guess I just wanted to share that.
Well, thank you for sharing. Yeah, I just have a few reflections, and the first is all my best to him, and I hope that he pulls through and things work out. Uh, the second is I can really relate to a lot of this, and that it took me years to really digest that this realization isn't necessarily going to help the ones I wish it would help the most, maybe like my family members or people I care deeply about. It probably does something, but I can't wake somebody else up. It just doesn't work that way. It's not like that. Anyone can wake up, but it's on them, and yeah, I can't choose that. So it took me a long time to really digest that like members of my family will continue to suffer, and it's just not in my hands at all. But it does lead to an equanimity. And the other thing I wanted to say is what you describe is really the realization of equanimity when, even though there are emotion tones with everything that's happening, the sense of having to like try to rearrange life somehow to make it better for you or whatever, it's just not there. It's just what's happening. And that's the best you can do, actually, is to be equanimous with what is happening, not reacting to it, but just being in flow with it. And um, that's saying a lot. I mean, it actually is a huge gift to anybody you're around, even if it's not obvious. The effects aren't immediate. It does something for sure, and it also can feel like something's missing, strangely. So if anyone has worked with fetters specifically, or worked with 4 and 5, or worked with reactivity, and all of a sudden you just don't have reactivity accessible anymore, it actually can really feel like something's missing. Like, wait, why am I not reacting? Why am I not getting like triggered by this, or why am I not contracting? And it can take a while to get used to the fact that you just don't need to. It's just not necessary, and it never was. It never really did anything valuable. It probably stirred the pot more than anything. So all of those reflections that you made are line up with my experience as well. And there's not much more to say about it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, Frankie may have something to say as well.
Yeah. Um, First, what Angelo said, my heart goes out to you and your son. I've personal direct experience with this kind of thing. So I understand how hard it is and all the things that it kind of turns up from, the bottom of the well, things that are expected and unexpected. So it's great that you're in contact with Chris, because I think um, in issues like this, it's good to be in direct contact with people that have that direct experience as well.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, just to echo back what Angelo said, um, I think when serious illness or addiction comes into the picture, it really shows us that we don't have control, and that's a very, very hard thing to experience directly, um, as a direct experience, when you really see that you cannot control what somebody else does with themselves, especially if it's, your son or your daughter or your brother, your sister, your mother, your father, people that we feel like we should have more direct influence over. Um, and this is where I think spirituality becomes very practical and real, because that's where we can be of the most use, where we realize that we don't have the capacity to actually do something to change the outcome of a situation.
Hmm.
Um, but it also shows that the best thing to do is to stay put, to stay with the experience of it and all its difficulty, and all the knowns and unknowns, because the truth of the matter is the outcome is unknown. You just know what's happening right now,
Hmm.
and you don't know what's going to happen next. And that's the most important thing. Um, so yeah, like I said, my heart goes out to you. I understand from personal experience what that feels like.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, I had one other thing to add. It just came to me, and it's about addiction in general for anybody, because we've all been touched by it one way or another. Um, Addiction is all about control and fear of loss of control. Like that's what drives addiction, or it's one of the root issues. And the best gift we can give anyone that we come into contact with who is struggling with addiction is to live a life where we don't need to feel like we're in control of anything, where we can actually be truly present. And that lack of the need to control and the lack of the need to be afraid of loss of control uh, will impress it, that there it makes an impression somehow. It may not be conscious at all for you or for anyone else you come into contact with, but it's probably the best thing you can do for somebody who's an addict. And it's just an example. It's just living by example. It may or may not change the course of their process in the immediate, but it's the best we can do. And again, this relates back to what I questions I get around the big problems of the world, the big challenges in the world, and family members and tragedy and all these things that go on around us. How do I reconcile that with awakening? And my answer is always essentially the same. It's just keep waking up yourself. It's all you can do is continue to wake up yourself, and then the effects that you have will be benevolent effects. But again, doesn't mean you're in control of anything. You can't decide the outcome of reality. But that's the best you can do. Really, is to be that live that kind of neutrality.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mm.
Okay, let's go to the bottom. Brando.
Hello. I didn't expect to be so soon, so I'm still in the car. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. So I was at Amplify, and at one point when you were doing Q&A, something kind of came up in that space. You were talking with Gibson what had happened, and about shame, and like specifically how it was tied to the throat. And ever since then, there's just been that like lump in the throat, and I'm trying to be as equanimous to it as possible and sit with it and not ask anything of it. But I'm noticing that the more I sit with it, the more that kind of unnameable emotion tones show up in the body, that seem to be really, really intense. And it's disorienting to an extent where like it feels as if something wants to give, something wants to break. But might have lost. I can't, there's no orientation as to what that might be. Oh, 1 second.
Frankie, would you like to start, or would you like me to start?
Oh, you can go.
Okay, cool. All right, Brando. So this is what I sense is going on with you. And it's may not be the kind of answer you want necessarily, but this is just what I sense is sometimes with certain shifts or with certain transmissions or with certain settings or meditation retreats, something very fundamental that's a sort of barrier between body and mind will break loose, and a lot of repressed material comes up, like something really deep that's old, maybe ancient, has been there a long time, and you have a very direct access to it. It will feel like intensely emotional, energetic. It can be surprising. It can have a very intense fear to it. It can have shame. It can have lots of qualities of emotion that we're not used to, and it can be kind of relentless. This is kind of what it sounds like is happening, and it's just the way this goes sometimes. Sometimes you get a little bit at a time. Other times something just breaks, and a big sort of mass of repressed material just comes up into consciousness or into the body experience, let's say, or maybe it even moves up energetically in the body from somewhere deep up into the throat or chest or something. So these things can happen, and genuinely just listening to you, you're doing what you can. You're doing what I would recommend, which is really just sitting with it, noticing, yes, there are thoughts that say, wow, this is overwhelming. This is too much. I don't know what this is. What do I do with this? How long is this going to last? Like, yes, I understand those thoughts come, but it doesn't sound like you're getting too entangled in them. And you seem to really have the direct access to the physicality of this experience, to the emotion of this experience. And I think you're okay. Like really, this could be around for a while, though. This may take a little while to move through, to process, to integrate. But you're doing good work by just being with it. That's about as much as I can think of to say at the moment, without getting into like details of techniques and so forth. But yeah, just give yourself space to process this. And like anything, it won't last forever. Nothing lasts forever. Things come, things go, this will go, but it may stick around a little while. That's my sense of it. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Anything to add, Frankie?
Yeah, just to compliment what you said is, if you flip normally what we do when intense things come up is, the mind tries to give it a label or tell us what it is, as opposed to letting the experience itself inform you what it is. There's information in there, even if it's just energetic. And by sitting with it, like Angela suggested, it can inform you as to what it's all about. It can actually, give you some insight, some information that your mind doesn't have access to.
Thank you. That's really direct.
Good luck. Let us know how it goes.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's go to Lorraine.
Hi, Angelo and Frankie.
Hello.
So, about a month or so ago, I had this major shift. I would call it that, I guess, where the seeker just stopped seeking. And it was of this knowing I don't need to seek anymore or to keep going after the different techniques, practices, all this. It was a beautiful place of just being in this flow. And it was just beautiful. And then seemed like quickly after that, then the hurricanes hit. Boom, one right after another. I lost my vehicle, and then my sister got diagnosed with cancer in that time. And I had during that time, I had so much reactivity. I was reacting to everything. And the fear and the anxiety was so high. I've never really been a fearful person, but all of a sudden this just come up. And I know it is like some old traumas, and I just felt that too. And so one of my questions is, where you speak about the gap in between events happening and then the reactivity. And then there's a gap in between, if I remember right, something like that. So I'm curious about that because it felt like there was no gap there. And I felt like I was like, I'm going backwards, and I know that's not true, you know what I mean? But it was so disruptive and disorienting and everything. Yeah. And so if you could speak on that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. So it sounds like what you had was an awakening, and then the circumstances of the hurricanes like kind of shortened the honeymoon period and dropped you right into the shadow space, which is fine. It's a little different for everyone, but when you get hit with that deep shadow stuff, it's exactly like that. You're like, I've felt fear before, but I've never felt fear like this before. Like, you don't feel fear, you become fear. It's like fear just takes over for that moment, and it's intense and direct and full on, and it tends to move through quickly, but it may come right back, and all of that. So all of that is really par for the course, and it's okay. You have the fact that you have that direct access, that is the point of awakening, right? Without a shift in identity, we're just so distanced from our own experience, from our body, from our emotions, that we can't really get underneath the fundamental illusions. Once we have that direct access, then we really can do the work. And actually, just as Frankie mentioned in the last answer, the work is done really subconsciously. It's not really done at the level of mind, thought, and understanding. It's done energetically. And the work is already being done if you're feeling things that directly. So that's just to summarize kind of what you reflect on and summarize what you said. As far as the gap and so forth, so I want to make a distinction that the gap is not a gap between conditions and emotions, meaning like the conditions appear and the emotion may be so full on. It's like, whoa, there's no gap there. And that's right, there is no gap there. But the gap we're talking about really is the gap between all of that and then realizing, oh, okay, what seems automatic and part of the whole process, which is my reaction to it, is actually not necessarily part of it. It is part of it, conditions based, but it's not necessarily. So you can sort of find that there is a gap there. And the gap really is the gap of a sort of discomfort and helplessness that you will do anything you can to mitigate, like quickly. And you'll go into your mind to mitigate it. You'll go into a behavior to mitigate it. But once you learn that you can actually find that gap and feel that discomfort, the raw discomfort, may feel like restlessness, may feel like just like you just want to crawl out of your skin almost. Once you find it, you'll realize you can actually stay there a little longer and a little longer. It may only be a few seconds at first, and it may be very uncomfortable. But as you stay there longer, you'll realize, oh, this is what the gap is. Actually, I don't actually have to react to what's happening, especially if it's happening in the mind. Like I'm remembering a triggering event from earlier today, and now I can find this gap, and I realize, oh, that is uncomfortable, but I don't need to jump to the next thing. I don't need to jump to a solution. I don't need to make it any other way than it already is. That's it. XYZ happened or didn't happen, and that's the end of the story. That doesn't mean I have to do, XYZ in relation to it. That's all we're talking about when we're talking about reaction gap. And for instance, if it's a hurricane situation or your car got destroyed, it might be like, what didn't happen that you wished would have happened, and it would have been, the hurricane didn't miss me. The carnage didn't spare my car, my house, my family, whatever. Just seeing that like what you would have liked to have happened is not what happened. And so then you can see the gap between what did happen and what is happening and what you thought should have happened or what you think should happen. That's ultimately what the gap is. It's just a gap between reality and the overlay we put on reality that says this is how it could be. Because that immediately puts us in our head. Because there's only place you can go to have that is in your head. The only place you can go to experience should or shouldn't is in your mind, because they don't exist in reality. And we know they don't exist in reality, but we act as if they do. By getting to the gap and staying there, you'll actually start to live like you actually realize that's la la land. There is no should or shouldn't. There's really what's happening. And that's when you kind of find yourself in the space that our first questioner described, Nomi, where, yeah, you can be going through some of the most painful thing anyone can go through in a family situation. And yet, strangely, there's actually equanimity. So is that helpful?
Yeah, it's still a little fuzzy, but yeah. Because I found myself second guessing, oh, with the first hurricane, why didn't I evacuate? Blah, 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 and I knew what I was doing. And so I know as far as the self-doubt and all this, I was so much on my head with that. And I was familiar with that. I know that. So it is, yeah, it's still a little fuzzy.
Yeah, and it will be at first, especially when things come this fast. So when there's hurricanes, there's all kinds of problems happening simultaneously. So the way to find yourself into the gap when things calm enough to actually have the space to practice this would be something like what you just described about the you didn't have time to evacuate, right? Or you didn't.
I did. I chose not to. So
you
I
chose
felt
not to,
then,
right? Yep.
yeah.
So what you would do is you would remember the intense moment that you realized the implications of not evacuating. And then you would say to yourself, I did not evacuate. And then find out where that brings you in the body. You'll feel an intensity to it. And then realize like, that's it. There's no more to that story. That doesn't mean, oh, I need to rethink everything. Oh, I need to judge myself. Oh, I need to, right? Those are all reactions. Just go right to what didn't happen that you wanted to happen, right? And see that that's just what happened. There's literally nothing else to it. But the mind tries to make it more complicated. So narrowing it down to one specific event is usually helpful.
Yes, that's clear. That's becoming clear now. Yeah.
Mhm. Cool. Frankie, what you got?
Yeah, just that. Like when that filter drops out of the way, everything comes rushing in, and I think it's just the natural reflex of the mind to kind of fill in those gaps again and be like, oh, I could have done this or I should have done that. And the more that settles down, the more it's easier to just be with whatever comes in and fills in the space when there's no filter. And, you know, I think the other thing is that, like, my experience with it sometimes is thinking I can still choose what comes into the space, and it doesn't work that way.
What was
Um,
that?
Sometimes it feels like I can still choose what comes into the
Oh,
space without the filter, and it doesn't work that way.
right.
Just whatever shows up, shows up. So,
Right. Right. Yeah.
including I shoulda, coulda, woulda, you know.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lorraine.
Thank you.
Good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Let's go to Sis Keel.
Hi.
Hello.
Oh, it's so nice to say hello to you.
Hello. Nice
I'm
to see
not
you.
very good with time, but a friend of mine told me about you last March,
Hmm.
this past March, and so I've been pretty attentive ever since, and have talked with Chris several times. She very much encouraged me to say hello to you.
Oh, good. Chris is
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yes, absolutely. And well, I'm so grateful for everyone. I'm just listening to all of you, all that you've gathered around yourself, these good people who are sharing with us. Um, so there's been a lot of equanimity here for, I guess, since a little bit before last March. And I very much hesitate to make any declarations about what's going on here at any time because as soon as I do, the next day it's all different. Um, it's been a pretty gradual story here. Um, I'm 77 and my first dark night was at age 11. So it's taken a lot of meandering and
Hmm.
listening and watching and dodging and all of that. But there is just a great deal of equanimity now, and boundaries are pretty weak. But I do have a question, and I'm not sure about raising it. But I've had a lot of physical challenges always, and one that took a very long time to be diagnosed was vestibular migraine. And so it was finally diagnosed and then measured in clinic as far as the vestibular nerve does drop function to 40% or less. But my question is that I heard you once say that you had a lot of migraine at one time. And I now have vestibular migraine with all of its concomitant of symptoms pretty much continuously. And there, I get a lot of responses from people about spiritual issues with that or psychosomatic issues with that and so on. I've investigated, I'm open to looking. I guess I'm asking about it because it is worse. The fatigue, migraines bring a lot of fatigue too. And my activity in life is my ability to be active is diminished quite a bit. And I can't find an emotional or shadow connection, but I wonder if I should keep looking. I'm certainly open. And if I should, is there some kind of looking that I haven't thought of that I could do?
Do you want to start, Frankie, or would you like me to start?
Um, just the only thing that's coming, and this sounds like super medical to me more than anything else. Like I think sometimes the body just says there's something to look at, and um, sometimes the spiritual lens can convolute it a bit, but
Mm.
that's just my sense. This is like something really, really medical. It's probably rising some spiritual questions, in terms of discomfort and being with extreme discomfort, chronic pain. But it sounds like it's something that's really primarily medical. But I'm not a doctor.
Yeah. No, but I appreciate that. And it does feel like that. I mean, there's a lot of equanimity with the experience of it.
Yeah. The things I thought to say, just are a few things. One is, as Frankie said, like we should never discount the possibility of something being primarily medical. Gangaji tells a story of a friend of hers who had pressure and pain in her head and some symptoms that she ignored for some time and then realized she actually had a brain tumor. So I always tell people if you have new symptoms, new neurologic experiences, anything like, it's always a good idea to get it checked out. Uh, with that said, there are definitely energetics associated with awakening and pain states and different things that happen. And even if they're still primarily medical, they can be exacerbated by energetic things as well. So you already have a diagnosis, you know what the medical diagnosis is, and that's good. A couple things I thought to say to you is, one is you can have a very subtle resistance pattern to something that's already there. That's not an emotional, it's not a reaction, it's not a reaction trigger, but there's just some resistance in the system to it. And so I find this with subtle things, subtle pain states, subtle beliefs, anything. You can always just ask when you're feeling very equanimous and calm, is there any resistance in this system to this experience? Meaning whatever the manifestation of that experience right now is. So if it's fatigue, if it's pain, if it's disorient, if it's like, dizziness or something, you can always just ask, is there any resistance in addition to that? And you may find that there is. And if there is, often it will just fall or it'll just get a little subtly easier. Like, the symptoms are still there, but they're just
Mhm.
less magnified. And I find this to be really helpful. It's a very gentle kind of looking, and it's just an open-ended question. And it's not a bad idea to do periodically with it. And the only other thing is I was going to ask, do you feel like energy stuck somewhere in your body?
Um, no, I don't feel like it's stuck because actually I asked that question rather frequently, and it has been sweet to
Good,
ask because it does bring more and more and more peace every
good.
time. It doesn't feel like it's stuck, but it feels like it is a body habit.
Mhm.
Not stuck because when I meditate with it, there's there's movement in it, but it is very similar patterns. I don't know if that makes sense. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
it
Yeah.
does.
Like
Yes.
the migraine has its own kind of body pattern,
Mhm.
but it's never quite the same, and it opens as I go deeper into it, but it doesn't go away.
Gotcha.
And yeah.
Last thing I was going to suggest is you may have talked about this to Chris already, is TRE, or
Yeah.
even like something like Qigong, an energetic practice. Those are the kind of things that, like, if you're not directly in contact with energetics, you don't realize what they're doing. But if you are, you might notice some differences, and they may, because some of these things are like so deeply rooted energetically, they're karmic. Like you're not going to have like conscious access, but there are energy management things that become important in deeper realization. And for some people, really hit on certain things that make big differences, like Chris with TRE, for instance.
Yeah. We have done both those, and I do have a Qigong routine. And what I've noticed is all of that has helped with sleep. There's better sleep. It's like there's not less migraine, but there is better sleep. And with better sleep, I mean, better sleep is always a blessing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. It's helpful to talk about it out loud.
That's the other thing. Yeah, it's just helpful to talk about.
Yeah. But there's one more thing, with the openness and kind of like the baptism into the senses. One of the things that has surprised me the most is how much more I smell. I never thought of waking up to smell more, but it's just been so surprising. Just, it's like,
It's amazing how much of our senses the mind filters out.
yeah.
It just disregards it as not important, not important.
Yeah.
The thoughts are important. Don't worry about all this like direct sensory stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for being here with all of us.
Thank
And
you.
hello to you,
Yeah.
Frankie. I've never met you either. So
Right.
thank you both.
It was good to meet you. Thank you.
And everyone else who's here creates this sense of being. Okay. Bye-bye.
You're awesome. Okay. What a sweetheart. Let's go to Federico.
Hi.
Hey.
It's always good to be here. Okay, so I finally finished your book, and that's great. It's a great book. Like I really recommend everyone to read it. I guess like I now have like instructions to do like a lot of things, and my mind still wants something else, as you also write in the book. But like there's a part of me that knows like, yeah, you have everything you need. And now it's kind of weird because of, in terms of what to do, my mind still wants to know what practices to do and how to manage this. Because I guess what I really want is like that, like equanimity that the last speaker was talking about. Like I want this to be all the time like this. And I had been doing shadow work for a long time, and now lately, since getting to the inquiry chapters and awakening chapters, like I started to pay more attention to that I am sense. And the last time we spoke, you told me to like try to do one pointed approach with that unbound consciousness and just stay in that. But it's weird because, for example, Ryan was saying the last time that maybe I should separate the practice of emotions and the practice of like awakening. But like I don't know anymore how to, because as I say, for the past year and something else, like every time I become a little present, it's just emotions, and like I can't ignore them. So if I start doing like the one pointed approach to the I am sense, like I will get emotions like for sure. Like there's no way I won't get them. So I don't really know what to do with them. And maybe the answer is that I started to feel that the two are similar, like doing emotion work and doing the one pointed approach in unbound consciousness is basically the same. But I don't know if like I should try to pursue that sameness, or if maybe I should just focus on no, just go for awakening, or if I just should just do emotion work without the unbound consciousness. And that brings the question of, okay, maybe am I putting too much pressure on myself to get that equanimity all the time? Like, is that happens very far down the road, like in no self, and I'm putting all this pressure right now to have it right now. So maybe I don't know. I want too much too soon. I don't know.
I mean, it sounds like you're like in analytical mode a little bit. Too many choices and practices and but there aren't too many choices and practices, but the mind is making it seem like that. That's what you're perseverating on a little bit. Um so it's like, now I don't want to give you another one. I want to point you to something that's just as simple as possible in your experience, but you have to find that yourself. It's like, ask yourself, what is the most simple, direct experience right now? And that's that. Just stay with that to the degree you can, and stay with it, but also learn to like dance with it. Learn to let it come to you, and just don't take those enticements of thought and analysis and doubt. Right? Doubt, oh, am I doing the right thing? Maybe I should do more of this. Should I do that? And then, um, it's just thoughts. That stuff is just a bunch of thoughts. Is that helpful?
Yeah, like maybe just allow whatever is happening to come and just be with that.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. But then, okay, then this analytical mind wants to know, like, when will that feel good all the time? Like, if I manage to do that, like in a practice, I do get equanimity. But if I'm like distracted walking in the street or talking to someone or working or whatever, it feels not that way at all. So, like, should I just try to achieve that, or should I just, like, every time I remember, just allow things to happen?
Yeah, I'd say don't borrow trouble. Don't plan for yourself to fail at this. Again, just thoughts, right? Like, so right now it's easy, it's straightforward, it's simple. Stay with what's the most obvious, immediate, and direct. And then sometimes that'll be hard. So what? But don't plan for it. Don't plan to fail. Don't plan for the problems that could come later. Um, yeah. Just notice those are thoughts. Those are just another form of doubt, ultimately. These are all forms of doubt. These thought forms.
Mm-hmm.
So can I add something, Angela?
Please, Frankie, hit it.
Yeah. So I teach martial arts, and I have the the good fortune or the misfortune of teaching something that's not so super straightforward for people to get. And I teach a lot of beginners. So what I tell all my beginning students is, like, you just have to practice the simplest thing. And then the complexity will take care of itself, you know? So just keeping it simple is the best thing. And the other thing that came to mind while you were speaking with Angela was, it's never going to feel any particular way all the time. So you can give that up from the beginning. It just doesn't work that way. But yeah, I tell all my students, just practice. The more you practice, and then it becomes not about succeeding or failing or any of that. It's just practice, 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 and things kind of level themselves out, and it takes a lot of the complexity out of the game.
Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying. Just focus on practice as much as I can and not think about like what this will bring or how things will change or how hard it will get.
Yeah,
Just
like,
practice when I remember.
yeah, and that's it. In any moment in time, it might be really cool and easy, and then it might be really like pulling teeth, and if it gets too bound up, then take a break and then come back. That's what I tell my students. You just got to keep showing up, and the rest of it will take care of itself over time. And you'll be
Mm-hmm.
surprised how little time that will be. Because again, the mind puts together all the stuff about time and how long it's going to take and when and how and and meanwhile, while you're practicing, it's all kind of getting taken care of, you know. And the simpler the better. That's what I kind of hold to now. The simpler thing that is easy to do is the best thing.
Okay. Okay. And you say that it will never feel like good all the time. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, no.
Oh, that's
Nothing ever happens all the time. There's no such thing as
Yeah,
all the time. There's no such thing as
yeah,
all the time.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, like it won't be bad all the time either.
Okay. Yeah.
But even the paradigm of all of the time doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
Where do you find all the time right now? There's no all the time. There's only right now. So that's a really hard thing to get early on, but later on, it's very freeing to realize that.
Yeah. hmm Okay.
You live without comparison. You live a life without comparison because there's nothing to compare to. There's no other ever.
Oh, yeah, because okay, every comparison is just a thought.
That's right.
hmm Okay. Thanks. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Bye.
Okay, let's go to Sarah. I haven't talked to you in a little while.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey.
I think last time I saw you maybe was in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Frankie was there too. We were all there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Cool. Hey, Frankie.
Hey.
Um, so like that last response that you were just giving is kind of like where I am. And so like I've been seeing the shame come up a lot and just being with it and like just seeing how much it controls everything. And like, so I'm practicing, um, just like basically talking, and being seen because I guess there's like, I don't know what it is, but it's hard. Like, it's just hard. So, um, I don't know if I have a question. I wasn't expecting to be emotional. But yeah, just like, I guess, oh, I know what I was going to say. So like, I've consciously practicing expressing myself, do stuff like this, but what it feels like I still have control over is like, okay, I can go back into hiding, or I can choose not to. Like it feels like, that's me, and I can still decide that. So, and I know like analytically or whatever, or based on everything you always say, that I'm not really choosing, but it feels like I am.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just as I was listening to you, I was like struck by how rare authenticity is. And authenticity, in the way I'm speaking in this moment, is like you said, you're practicing just expressing yourself. And that's something that anyone could take up, anyone should take up, but most people don't. We don't actually usually express ourselves accurately. We express ourselves through learned, stereotyped behaviors and acceptable communication patterns. That's what almost everyone's doing all day long. Literally, we're like a little bit hypnotized in that behavior pattern. So you're doing something great, which is learning to actually express what is actually going on for you right now and being okay with that, which is awesome. It's huge, including emotion, including feeling emotion and expressing and emoting because that's what's happening. Why hide it? And if there's shame, why hide that? That's what's being felt, right? And if there's a reaction to shame, why hide that? Because that's what's being experienced. So it's
Yeah,
helpful.
it just feels so sad, or like
Hmm.
I mean,
Yep.
and then I get critical about it. It's like it's so silly, you know?
The sadness isn't silly. The sadness is sadness, and that's we all carry a lot around. A lot of people repress a lot of sadness and grief. So but it's not silly. But if the voice that says it's silly is also just part of our experience. That's maybe the parent voice or something, right? Or it's the maybe it's the shame voice that says like, oh yeah, you shouldn't burden other people with your emotions or something. But the truth of it is the emotion is just there, right? And so how wonderful to actually feel it and acknowledge that it's okay to feel it and let your body literally just feel what it's trying to feel. It's awesome.
Okay, thanks.
It feels like and this is I really genuinely mean this. It's so common, I find, with people publicly like this, or people I work with that I don't know really well, and even people I'm really close to. It's so common that people feel apologetic when they emote. But my honest response is like, you feel really real to me. When you're emoting, you feel way more real than when you're talking about your story. It feels like I feel connected to you. I feel like I like you. I feel like you're honest. I feel like I trust you. Those are my reactions and responses to you emoting because it's real. Yeah. So just know, like, you not only do you have a right to do it, um, you actually give a gift to other people by doing it. Now, also part of the deal is that people are so conditioned to be afraid of emotions that not everyone will respond like I just did. Some people will be kind of weirded out because they're afraid of their own emotions, not yours. They're afraid of their emotions. So we just have to be mature enough to realize that everybody out there is not emotionally healthy, and that yeah, in some settings it may not go over so well to emote. But to someone you trust, someone you love, someone you care about, someone who cares about you, someone who is present with you and wants to communicate honestly, it's an awesome form of communication. So I feel connected to you. I feel appreciative of your expression, your vulnerability, your honesty. I think it's beautiful.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Thank you
I
for
mean,
for
I
chatting.
yeah, I like you too.
Oh, you're a very likable person. Yeah. Yeah. Frankie, what you got to say, buddy?
Yeah, it's funny. Like,
Sarah, can you say hi real quick so Frankie can look at you while I was talking?
Hi, Frankie.
hey,
Hey.
just the whole thing about, shame, and I think, I always think of, embarrassment, and then deep shame is, when we didn't live up to who we thought we were supposed to be in any given moment in our lives, right? And there's always good reasons for that. I think sometimes we discount the circumstance to a large degree when we shouldn't. And I think when those things arise, especially if it's things from the past, it's really important for ourselves, like, to really embrace those things and hold them close, because most of the times when we're, and going from my own experience in those places in life, it felt like there wasn't anybody there to help us do that. And so when it comes back, it's surprising, right? That it's still there. And sometimes the simplest, most direct solution to that is to hold that close to ourselves, and to really feel it, in our body, in the chest, in the heart, and hold it really close, not to push it away, not to distance, but to really, bring it in, because that's really what it's looking for. It's like an acknowledgement. Um, and that forgiveness gets thrown around a lot, but to me, forgiveness is just the understanding and the acceptance that at that moment in time, that's the best we were able to do. If we could have done better, we would have, but and whatever the circumstances were, whatever the disability was at that time, you know, and in the present, that's not the case, because you have the benefit of that experience now, so to me, the shame is really you know, there's a gift in there, but only if we're willing to bring it in close, and that's also part of expressing yourself, and I think that's what Angelo's referencing is a lot of people have a hard time with that. It's easier to pretend like we're Teflon and nothing sticks to us, but the reality is a lot of things stick, and so part of letting that loose is, acknowledging that that stuff is there and letting it work itself through. So it's not easy to do. It's not easy to do, and it doesn't feel good, but in the end, it pays off.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. That definitely resonates.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks.